Hi everyone, this is Untold Force, and today we're going to cover quite a bit of information, so we're going to have to jump right in. I'm using my Gladiator Evo just as a default kind of a demonstration device with the Space Combat Grip, but this will work on pretty much any VKB device. And what we're going to do today is we're going to cover setting up keyboard or key presses using your VKB device. First off, I am using a beta version of the firmware. If your version is pretty old, you may not have the same features that I have. So you can look at my 2026 firmware upgrading guide, which covers beta versions, and it is on this channel. So just jump back, watch that video. Right now, I am using device firmware version 2.20D and the latest version of VKB Dev Config. So we really are on the bleeding edge here. But we're going to jump right in. First off, before you do anything else, you need to turn on keyboard mode on your VKB device. So you have to go at the bottom, go to the global tab, and then there's these two middle tabs here. Sometimes you might have external selected. We're going to go to common, and then under keyboard, we're going to select classic, and I'm going to press set. After you make any changes on the global tab, you almost always have to press set. What this means is that instead of your joystick just being a joystick, now it is a joystick and a keyboard. And by the way, my joystick was completely freshly defaulted and configured. There were no changes made to it before. And if things are working properly, in the top, you'll see that there's a number 2 after HID composite device. That means that you have both your joystick, that's the game controller, as well as the keyboard present. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up something that might be popular for older games, and that is using WASD instead of analog inputs. So here under the profile tab at the bottom, there's 4 middle tabs. So there's Axis, Buttons, POVs, and Booleans. We're going to go to POVs because VKB Dev Config has a great way of automatically setting up something like arrows or WASD, and that is under the POV, you just use the standard common type, and under output, select keyboard. And you have the choice of outputting WASD or arrows. In this case, I'm just going to use WASD. Under here, this is your virtual controller number, which you don't have to worry about because we're on virtual controller 1 by default. This is going to be using 2 axes, and it is going to be using Axis 5 as the x-axis and Axis 6 as the y-axis input. So that's because I have the Gladiator Evo with the Space Combat Grip Premium version, and I'm using the mini stick axes, so mini stick 5 and 6 axes. If you're not sure what axis you're using, you can again go at the bottom, click Profile, and then here go under Axis, and you can see which axes are 5 and 6. In this case, we can see that it is Rot X and Rot Y. And if you're not sure what Rot X and Rot Y are, you can click Test, go to Axes, and then activate your mini stick by pushing in so the red light's on the grip, and you can see Rot X and Rot Y are moving around. So that is our mini stick axes. We're going to change that up in the end just to give you a little bit extra information. But back to the profile, back to POVs, we have axis 5 and 6 set here. You can invert them right here if you want to. And there's a dead zone. Dead zone by default is 50. I'm going to lower this down just a little bit. I'll take it down to 40. You can also select the dead zone type, so cross or circle, that's up to you. And finally, you can select whether you want it on, off, that is whether you want it to respect whether you push in. By default on the premium stick, if you push in, you can go into analog axis mode, and if you push in on that mini stick again, you'll go back to POV mode. In this case, the POV mode is going to be firing these keys. I'm going to leave it on set to on off right now, but if you want this to always be this way, you'll want to set it to always. Okay, so now that we've done this, we're going to click set, and we're going to test it out. It's easy to test out right here in VKB Dev Config. Just jump over to the test panel at the bottom, and then we're going to select keyboard. So it'll show you any key presses. For example, I'm going to just press T on my regular keyboard, and you can see that every time I press T, it comes up. Great. So on my joystick, now I'm on my Gladiator, and I'm going to try pressing up. There we go. Down, left, right. And one thing that we might notice is that W and S are inverted. This is working properly, but because it's inverted on my Y-axis, and again, we can check what the Y-axis is. Actually, we'll have to uncheck keyboard, so we're not pulling the keyboard anymore. And check the Y-axis, that is rot Y. So I'm going to go to Profile, and I'm going to invert rot Y, and now it should be the standard WASD, just like you would expect it on a keyboard. And just to make sure, we're going to go to Test again, clear this out, go to Keyboard, and let's see, does up trigger W? Up does trigger W. Down triggers S, left triggers A, right triggers D. Perfect. Great. Let's say you want to make things a little bit more spicy, and you want your rotation, let's say that you want the grip, the twist axis on your grip to do Q and E, for example. Maybe a little bit of strafing or, rotation there for, using Q and E. So this is going to be a great opportunity to go to use, I have to uncheck keyboard again. This is where we can use Boolean operators to evaluate things. There is an entire PDF that covers pretty much everything about VKB Dev Config, and this is available on the VKB website. We're going to be using something called Axis2Buttons, which in this current version of the Enjoy 32 manual, it is Chapter 7, Section 17. So if you want to read and follow along, I'm not going to go through all of this because this is definitely something that is best left for homework. But what I will show you is how to start. So we're going to go to the Boolean operators, and these are all little boxes that you can execute for different operations. I'm going to click in the first empty cell after after the portrait, and in the drop down here, we're going to choose Axis2Buttons, because what we want to do is we want to use that twist axis turning left and right, and we want to turn those into button presses or keyboard outputs. In fact, we want to use the Q and E keys on our keyboard. So you now look at this and you go, what am I looking at? Well, don't worry. We are going to work this out together. The A here, so all of these things kind of lines up with these inputs here, and the output lines up with this over here. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail, but what we want to do is we're going to select our logical input, and we're going to select, I think, logical axis 3, but we're going to check that in just a second. And what we want to do is we want to create zones. And the number of zones that we want to create, let's create 3 zones. So basically the left third, the center third, and the right third. Just imagine that that entire axis is going to be divided into 3 zones. And then your hysteresis, I'm going to lower this down a little bit. It's just how accurate it is around the edges. And then finally, what are we going to do for this Axis2Buttons output? We're going to select physical buttons instead of virtual, because we're going to be using these. And I'm going to double click in here to bring up my my buttons, and I'm going to use button 41 just because it's free. You can select anything. You can just use anything that's green, preferably after like I would not want to use anything that is bounded by red numbers, because that means that they are in use. So we're just selecting 41 because it's on a new register and it's free. And we're going to click OK. And just to make sure that it is logical axis 3, we're going to go to Axes, and under here it's logical axis, and we want to make sure that rot Z is 3, and it is. And just to test it, we can go to Test, Axes, and I'm going to rotate my the twist on my stick, and it is showing that that is rot Z. So this is all correct. It's looking right. So let's set that and see what happens. What I'm expecting to happen is that we're going to have 3 button outputs, one for the left third of our twist axis, one for the center, and one for the right. Let's go to test, and they should start at 41. So let's make sure this is correct. Yep, that is working. So there we go. I'm rotating the twist on my stick, and that is activating 41, 42, and 43. 42 is just when it's in the center third, so that's when it's kind of like in the neutral position. And we're going to have 41 and 43 be there as well. So let's try this. Now that we've created that axis to button, we're going to go to Profile under Buttons, because we created on the physical layer, so we want to make sure that we are viewing on the physical layer. And I'm going to make sure this little pole is checked. And I'm going to turn my twist all the way to the left. All the way to the left, I would expect, based on the keyboard, to be button Q. So in this case, it is activating this button right here, which is button 43. I click that, and it brings up the button mapping wizard. We're going to change this from a button output. So there's all sorts of options that you have here. You have buttons, button alt, radio button, button SX. These are all covered under your manual. And what we're going to do is we're going to use, why am I? I am actually having a bit of a crazy moment here, because I'm trying to figure out why I am not outputting things properly. Oh, maybe this is, there we go. So I checked things in the physical layer, and what we want to be working on is the logical layer, because this is where we will change it to output as a key press instead of a regular button. I'm sure that 2 of you out there will laugh at this error, and the rest of you will go, I was going to make the same error myself, but I'm about to see Lord of the Rings Return of the King in the movie theater for the first time in like 20 years, so I'm pretty excited about that. That's an aside. Sorry about that. Anyway, we're going to go here, and we're again going to see which one is active. So if I go all the way to the left, which is what I want to be Q, it will be this one. So I select here, and then I'm going to go to Keyboard, and I'm going to select key underscore Q. And then if I go and rotate it to the right, I will select key underscore E. So we're going to go to Keyboard, select key underscore E, and now we're going to set that and see if Q and E activates whenever we use the twist function on our stick. So we're going to go to Test. We're going to clear this out again, select Keyboard, and let's see if it happens. If I turn it to the right, it goes and hits and releases E. If I turn to the left, press and release Q. So there you go. And if I use my mini stick, the analog stick in the A1 position on the premium grip, that will use the WASD. But let's say, you know what? I don't want to use the mini stick. I want to use the main axes on my stick. Well, you can do that as well. It's pretty easy. Just go under Profile. Oh, we have to uncheck keyboard polling. We want to go to Profile, back to our POVs that we set up at the very beginning, and we want to select the X and Y axes to be the X and Y, the main axes on our stick. Okay, so in this case, we can always check to see what the main axes are. X is axis 1, Y is axis 2. So we just go back here, we change this to axis 1, 2, let's set it, let's see if it works. I didn't test this, so let's see. All right, we're going to clear this out again, use keyboard, and now I'm going to use the entire stick. So I'm going to push forward, and it is unfortunately inverted. So I'm going to go and fix that by going back to Profile, uninverting the Y-axis, and let's see if that fixes this. Because remember, we checked that little inversion box when we were working with the mini stick. So let's clear this. I'm going to push the stick forward. That should be W. Yes. I pull it back. That's S. Left is A. Right is D. And let's turn it to the left. So that's the twist, and that's Q and E. Voila, you now have WASD, Q, and E on the main axes of your stick. But you can configure this any way you want. Just remember, after you set things the way you want them, always select the Save button, and then give it a good name. So I'm going to call this main axes WASD QE, and I will save this. So that way you can always come back to it later. I hope that you learned something. I hope that you had some fun. This is, again, Untold Force. Thanks for watching, and have a wonderful evening.